a secret you were never meant to hear. Cue low, atmospheric hum, black screen. Then, they found 5 bodies in their beds, and not a single scream had been heard. Not one. Pause. The screen flickers. A faded image of a farmhouse window appears, cracked open. Wind moans through it. Then, cut to black. You weren't supposed to know this. What I'm about to show you isn't in your textbooks, and it won't be featured in any museum. This story, this reality, was buried by those who feared what it revealed about power, madness, and the American soul. Cedar Creek, Texas, 1898. On paper, it was just another forgotten patch of dust and sweat along the Texas frontier. But beneath its surface pulsed something ancient, something toxic, something designed to destroy. Her name was Margaret Yates, a devoted wife, a mother of 5, a woman held up as the shining example of frontier virtue. But what no one tells you, what they still don't want you to ask, is why she slaughtered every one of her children on a quiet summer morning, and then sat in silence, soaked in their blood, humming a hymn no one could recognize. This wasn't just a tragedy. This was a ritualized implosion, a psychological sacrifice to a system that demands silence, submission, and the slow erasure of identity, especially from those who carry the future in their hands. You see, the Yates family didn't just fail. They were hollowed out, one manipulation at a time. Let me be clear. This isn't a story about a woman who snapped. This is about how institutions, religion, medicine, patriarchy, and the myth of American independence conspired to consume a human being, and they left breadcrumbs, little signs that, once you see them, you can't unsee. Over the next 13 revelations, I'm going to pull you deeper into the shadows. Each layer will peel back the illusion you've been sold about history, morality, and content. Roll. By the end, you'll understand. Margaret Yates wasn't the first to break, and she won't be the last. But if you're hearing this, you're not here for safety. You're here for truth. And that comes at a cost. Are you ready to look through the window they left open? Good. Then let's begin. There's a house in Cedar Creek the locals won't speak of. Not because they've forgotten it, but because memory is too dangerous. They say it breathes at night. Wood groans without wind. Floors creak beneath invisible footsteps. But houses don't haunt themselves. They're haunted by truths buried alive. Truths no one dares exhume. The Yates house was never just a home. It was a pressure chamber, a crucible, a spiritual slaughterhouse masked in picket fences and Sunday hymns. Look closer, peel back the lace curtains, and you'll find a kind of silence that screams. Margaret Yates walked its halls barefoot, each step another thread unraveling. She moved like a ghost years before she became one. Not all wounds bleed. Some rot slowly from within. And no one noticed the smell until it was too late. Her descent wasn't sudden. It was measured, precise, almost orchestrated. By 1898, Margaret had stopped praying. She'd go through the motions, mouth the hymns, bow her head in church, but her eyes stared past the pulpit, past the preacher, into something else. Something we weren't meant to see. Something watching. Her diary, burned by Thomas days after the murders, held entries no God-fearing woman should have written. "The garden is watching me," she scrawled once. "It knows I'm cracking. It wants the children. Madness, maybe, or maybe not. Understand this. The frontier wasn't just physically brutal. It was psychologically engineered to isolate, to break. The further from civilization a woman lived, the easier it was to discredit her pain, to medicate her into obedience. Laudanum wasn't just a treatment. It was a leash, a velvet cage, a system approved by doctors, funded by trade, and blessed by pastors. Margaret's thoughts weren't her own anymore. They were filtered, numbed, sterilized. She didn't go insane. She was erased. But here's the part they never tell you. Something was fiend, ding on her, something ancient. Not a demon in the fire and brimstone sense, but a pattern, a force, an institutional parasite that thrives on silence and ritual. It doesn't want you to ask why 5 children were methodically laid out in bed like dolls, or why Margaret took her time. It just wants you to forget. But you won't. Not after this, because this story isn't about a mother who snapped. It's about a system that quietly snaps women like twigs, one whisper at a time. And now that you've heard it, you're part of it. Are you still with me? By the summer of 1899, the Yates house had become a sealed tomb. Its windows shuttered, its door nailed shut by county order, its history quarantined like a plague. But rot doesn't die in silence. It ferments, it grows teeth, and then it starts whispering again. Sheriff Elwood Carr was the first to break the seal. July 3rd, 1899. He wasn't superstitious, but he was stubborn, thought the rumors were a distraction from real crimes. He lasted 11 minutes inside. When they pulled him out, he wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat. He just scribbled one phrase over and over on the walls of his cell. She's still there. Now, if you ask Cedar Creek's Historical Society about the Yates family, they'll give you 2 facts and a shrug. Tragic case. All dead. God rest. But that's not the whole story. Not by half. Because 3 months after the murders, someone else entered that house. A traveling photographer named Eben Roach. He wasn't local, didn't care about the town's taboos. He thought he could profit from the carnage, document the aftermath, sell the images back east to some penny dreadful press. What he found never got published. Only one of his glass plates survived, hidden in the back of a trunk found in a burned-out barn 20 miles from the Yates property. I've seen it. I wish I hadn't. It shows the children's bedroom. Beds neatly made, dolls placed on pillows. But in the mirror, on the far wall, you see Margaret, pale, eyes wide, mouth open mid-scream, a figure in motion, blurred, almost shaking the plate itself. The problem? Margaret had been dead for 7 weeks, and that's when the water began to turn. Neighbors started reporting strange runoff in the creek. Thick, dark, viscous. Livestock refused to drink. Crops wilted near the banks. The town doctor, Dr. Jules Penmore, tested samples and filed an urgent report to the state capitol. The file was stamped receipt, and then it disappeared. So did Dr. Penmore. Understand this. What happened in that house didn't stay in its walls. Trauma leaks. It metastasizes. And something had nested in the very soil beneath the Yates homestead. A sickness that spreads not through contact, but through remembrance. You think you're safe because this is just a story? You're not, because once you know, you carry it, like a spore in the lungs, like blood in the water. And now, you know, still listening? Then we can begin to talk about what she left behind. Not the bodies, not the diary, something far worse. There was a trapdoor beneath the kitchen floor. Everyone in Cedar Creek knew that, even before the murders. It was just a root cellar, stone walls, dirt floor, storage for potatoes, onions, maybe a bottle of preserved peaches. But what the town didn't know, what Margaret never wrote about, was the other door. Behind the coal chute, there was a second entrance, smaller, hidden behind stacked crates and rusted canning shelves. You had to crawl to reach it. You had to want to. They found it during the second investigation in 1900, after another disappearance. A surveyor named Clive Hollister went down to map mineral lines. Never came up. The search party found his notebook near the chute. Last page read, "Something is breathing down here. It knows my name." They almost sealed it shut again, but one man insisted they dig. Deputy Felix Rourke, Irish immigrant, ex-Pinkerton, sharp as a scythe and twice as bitter. He said if the Yates murders were going to haunt this town forever, then someone needed to drag the truth into the daylight. They opened the second door. Behind it, a narrow tunnel, hand-carved, sloped downward. They followed it 40 yards before the air went sour, wet with copper and rot. Then came the bones, dozens of them. Not Yates' family, older, ancient, animal, human, hard to tell. And the symbols carved into the walls, not English, not Latin, older than either. One archaeologist brought in from Chicago would later compare the markings to Proto-Euphratean funeral glyphs, circa 3000 BC, despite no historical record of any such language reaching North America. But the tunnel didn't end in bones. It ended in a door, circular, iron, warm to the touch. They knocked, something knocked back. Rourke sealed the tunnel himself, bricked it, salted it, died 3 months later in his sleep, lungs filled with river mud. Here's the part that didn't make the paper. When they cataloged the contents of the root cellar, they found jars, dozens, each one filled with a black, tarry liquid. No label. But every jar contained a single item suspended inside. A child's tooth, a lock of gray hair, a wedding ring, a baby's pacifier, a priest's collar pin, 13 jars in total. And in the center of the room, a circle drawn in chalk. Inside it, a single wooden spoon, burnt black at the tip, still warm. You want to believe the Yates murders were just that? A madwoman and a knife and a long bloody night. You want to. Because the alternative? The alternative is this. She didn't go mad. She opened something. And now, something's listening. The tape wasn't supposed to exist. According to the town records, the house had no electricity in 1899. But in 1974, a demolition crew prepping the Yates property for razing found a sealed metal container buried in the chimney flue. Inside, a reel of magnetic tape. Label handwritten in tight, cursive script. Do not play, M.Y. The foreman, George Tallman, brought it to the county office. They laughed. Probably a prank, someone said. Probably someone wanted them to listen. Curiosity always wins. They threaded it into an old TX deck, powered it up, pressed play. It begins with silence, then static, crackling, like rain on tin. Then a voice, faint, female. whispering. Not quite Margaret's, but close, slower, dragging syllables like broken legs. It doesn't want blood, it wants remembering. Another voice follows, a child's, repeating one word over and over. Mama, 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 mama. The sound cuts. Silence returns. Then screaming, but not human screaming. It's layered, like metal groaning under pressure, like 1,000 mouths trying to speak through one. Frequencies not meant for human ears. One technician collapsed after 30 seconds. Blood out the nose. Seizure. Never walked again. They burned the tape, or tried to. Wouldn't catch. They buried it in the archives under chemical waste tags. But rumors leaked. College students started sneaking in, playing copies, daring each other to last longer than a minute. No one ever made it past 2:39. Here's the kicker. Every version, original or dub, ends the same way. A final voice, male, sober, familiar to anyone who's listened to interviews from the 1900s. It's Deputy Rourke, and he's crying. He says, "It's not a cellar, it's a mouth, and we fed it names." Then the tape tears. It always tears. Even digital versions glitch, distort, rip. As if something inside the recording doesn't want to be remembered, or doesn't want to stop spreading. Ask yourself something. Why did Margaret Yates own a reel-to-reel recorder decades before they were invented? And more importantly, who was she recording for? You're 5 layers deep now, one section remains. But fair warning, they say it only starts after you've read too much. After the 5th section, after the recording, people start to dream about the house. Not as it was, as it wants to be. The first night is usually mild. You find yourself walking down a hallway with no end. Walls soft like breathing lungs. There's a door ahead. It opens by itself. Inside, the dining room, candlelit, a woman at the far end of the table, seated in a black wedding dress, veil pulled low. She's humming a lullaby, a plate in front of her, filled with teeth. Sometimes she speaks, sometimes she just looks at you. But by the 3rd dream, people stop waking up clean. One man in 1987 claimed he came back from a dream with mud under his fingernails. Another, Rosa Whitcomb, woke to find her bedroom door bricked over from the inside. No one ever explained that. These dreams, they don't resemble memories. They replace them. You'll start forgetting things. Little things at first. The name of your 3rd grade teacher, the color of your first bicycle, then larger ones. Your mother's face, your own handwriting, and eventually, when enough is gone, something else slips in. This is known as the 6th inheritance. Every century or so, the Yates house chooses a new keeper, not someone who owns it, but someone who remembers it too well to leave it behind. Someone hollowed out enough to make room. Room for what? No one agrees. Some say a spirit. Others say a fragment of the house itself. But all of them agree on this. Once the dreams start, you're already inside. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, geographically. You will wake up with soil in your mouth. You will dream of rain that falls upward. You will hear your own voice calling to you from the other room. And if you ever open that door, you will find the Yates house waiting. But it won't be where it should be. It'll be where you are. You've read 6 sections. You now know more than anyone who's ever left. Not in the archives. Not in the microfilm. not even in the forbidden catalog at Ashcroft. But some people claim to have heard it, or something like it. The conditions must be exact. You must be alone. You must have read all previous sections aloud, and you must be willing, truly willing, to listen when there should be silence. If you've done all that, then you already know Section 7 isn't a story, it's a response. There are reports, mostly unverifiable, of people who finished the 6th section and then began to hear a 7th one play from nowhere. No tape recorder, no file, just the sound, crackling, low, full of breath and basement air, seeping in through the walls. What does it say each time? Different. Each time, exactly the same. It always begins with your name, not the one you give others, the one you dream in, the name the house already knows. Then, a series of memories, but not yours. They are borrowed, stolen, maybe, from people who never lived but died all the same. The 7th section tells you how you got here, why you can't leave, what the house buried inside you before you were born. It will describe your childhood home in impossible detail. It will remind you of the door behind the bookshelf, the one you were never allowed to open. Then it will ask a question. No one remembers the question afterward, only the answer they gave. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's I'm sorry. Sometimes it's just the sound of someone starting to cry and never stopping. You have now requested Section 7. That is enough. Tonight, something will knock once. Just once. Do not answer it. Do not write down what it says, because the house wants a record, and you already know what does. You are not reading this. You already have. You will. Time folds in the Yates house, not like a page, like flesh, soft, bruised, too warm. Section 8 is not a continuation. It is a reflection, a memory the house has of you from a night that hasn't happened yet. The hallway is longer than it was. I don't remember lighting that candle. Who turned the picture to the wall? In Section 8, the house begins to speak through you. You will say things aloud that no one taught you. You will describe rooms you have never seen. You will call out a name you do not remember forgetting. Then you will feel it. The weight behind the drywall, the heat inside the cold oven, the shiver beneath your own skin, like something waiting to be born again. There is a door that was not there before. Behind it, no handle, no hinges, just a breath, waiting. The door speaks in images, a child in a bathtub, holding their breath for too long, a man in the attic, whispering into a jar, a woman in a mirror, staring past you. They are all you, in the same way that fire is smoke. When Section 8 ends, you will feel a presence standing behind you. Do not turn around. Do not close your eyes. Do not think about your own reflection. You are in the room again, but something's wrong with the edges. They bend inward, like the frame of a picture trying to forget what's inside it. The mirror does not reflect. It records. It replays what you never confessed, even to yourself. You stand still. Your reflection blinks first. In Section 9, the mirror reveals that it has never shown you truth, only your insistence on being seen. Watch closely. Your reflection breathes when you don't. Your left eye twitches twice, then stops. You smile. Your reflection does not. The mirror whispers your name in reverse. E tu Norette. You try to laugh, but something sharp moves in your throat. That's not a laugh. That's the sound glass makes when it remembers its own shattering. Things the mirror will show you in section 9. The second time you lied about why you stayed late. The way your mouth moves when you dream. The exact moment your skin became a costume. You will notice, finally, there is another reflection behind your own. She doesn't look surprised. She's been watching since section 3. You wore my face so well, but I want it back now. By the end of section 9, the mirror becomes a door. It leads inward, it leads down. And if you follow it, you will never mistake your reflection for yourself again. The glass is behind you now. What's ahead is not darkness, it's thickness, a heavy, breathing dark, the kind that presses against your eyes instead of hiding them. Your fingers scrape across walls made of memory, but they're not your memories. They belong to something older, something that has worn your face before. The path narrows. Your breath grows louder, not because you're afraid, because you're not alone anymore. You never were. At your feet lies a mouth, not attached to anything, just a mouth, speaking in the voice of someone you tried to forget. You left me here, but I grew teeth without you. You try to step over it. It follows. Section 10 is about recognition, but not of others, of yourself. From the outside, you finally see what your laughter looks like to strangers, how your kindness is shaped like an apology. The exact second you decided being loved was more important than being real. The walls begin to whisper your choices back to you. They loop, but each time they sound less human, until finally you hear what you really said, not what you meant to. The mouth opens wider. You don't remember it having a tongue, but now it does, and it's yours. At the end of section 10, the air sharpens. The voice returns. You're ready now, but not to leave. You came all this way to meet something that looks like truth. And just as your eyes begin to adjust, you are standing on a floor made of decisions you almost made. It pulses with every regret you refuse to name. Beneath it, a heartbeat that isn't yours, but keeps perfect time. Around you, figures gather. Not people, not shadows, just shapes made of your old attempts at becoming someone better. They move like you did when you were pretending. They smell like your mother's voice when she said she was proud, but meant something else. One reaches out. Its hand is your hand. Not metaphorically, literally your hand. The one you gave away when you said, I'll do whatever it takes. You did. Now it wants it back. This is the part of the journey where nothing follows you anymore because you've caught up to it. The questions stop because you've outlived their use. The door appears because you've finally stopped looking for one. And when you open that door, it leads to a room that's exactly your size. It fits everything you never said. The ceiling is the shape of your ceiling at age 12. The light is wrong in a way that makes your bones ache. There's a chair. It's facing the corner. You know what's sitting in it. You always have. Section 11 doesn't end. It waits until you sit down. And once you do, the voice says, this is the answer. It waited for you. It hoped you'd be someone else. But it kept your name anyway. You do not speak. Here, every sound you make becomes law, not metaphor. Law, say, I'm fine, and the world adjusts to make it so. By breaking everything that says otherwise, say, I'm sorry, and all the things you've abandoned come back. Just to forgive you too loudly, say someone's name, and they'll feel it in their ribs for the rest of their life. You don't remember stepping into this place. You just woke up here with a throat full of echoes that aren't yours, a mouth lined with reasons, a choice. Speak and risk truth, or remain silent and keep the shape you came in. There is a mirror, not to show you who you are, but who your voice thinks you are. It looks at you the way a secret looks at its last keeper. It doesn't reflect, it listens. And this is the test. You must name something you've never told anyone. You must do it aloud. You must mean it. If you lie, the floor cracks. If you whisper, the ceiling lowers. If you say nothing, the room begins to repeat your inner monologue, but wrong, just wrong enough to break you. You say the thing. You finally say it. It hangs there, glowing, breathing, and then it shatters. But you don't feel relief. You feel a door unlocking in your spine. You feel your name rewriting itself behind your teeth. You were never meant to see what was hidden in plain sight, because if you had, you'd have noticed the signs weren't subtle. They were masked, draped in religion, sewn into lace collars, polished into perfect Sunday manners. Madness in 898 didn't come foaming at the mouth. It came dressed as a mother, reciting psalms with dead eyes. Margaret Yates wasn't just unraveling. She was being unstitched from the inside by a sickness no one wanted to name. Postpartum psychosis wasn't a term then. They called it female hysteria, a quaint diagnosis that allowed the world to ignore it. Women were expected to bear it quietly, like they bore children, bloody, screaming, alone. In Cedar Creek, suffering in silence was just tradition. But Margaret's silence was growing teeth. By May of that year, Margaret was writing letters to her dead mother. Not metaphorically, literally. She'd take the children's crayon stubs, scratch out desperate notes, and leave them folded beneath her pillow. They watch me when I sleep, one letter read. Not the children, the others, the shadows. They know I'm failing. These letters were discovered later, after the blood had dried. But at the time, no one saw, or worse, they chose not to, because Margaret was doing everything a woman was supposed to. She came to church. Her children wore shoes. Her husband's shirt was ironed. In a society obsessed with appearances, a perfect surface could hide a rotting core. That's how deep the denial ran. It wasn't just hers. It was the whole town's. And here's where we start to descend further, because this wasn't just about a broken woman. It was about what broke her. A system that demanded devotion, but offered no sanctuary. An era where the church told women to obey. The law told them to be quiet, and medicine told them to numb the pain or die trying. Margaret's descent wasn't inevitable. It was engineered. 5 children. That's how many lives it cost for Cedar Creek to admit something was wrong. And even then, they didn't blame the structure. They blamed the woman. Because it's always easier to call a mother mad than to call a culture cruel. But now you're seeing what they buried. The blood behind the prayers. The ache behind the apron. The real history. The forbidden kind. And once you've seen it, you can't go back. Ready for more? They didn't even bury them together. Not at first. When the neighbors found the bodies, small, cold, still in their nightclothes, they didn't whisper about grief. They whispered about shame. 5 tiny graves scattered across Cedar Creek, as if distance could undo what happened under one roof. The children didn't scream. That's what the coroner noted. No signs of struggle, no defensive wounds. as if their mother's hands were still soft when they took their last breath, as if trust had followed them into the dark. Lillian, age 9, James, 7, Emma, 5, Benjamin, 3, and Ruth, barely 18 months, still curled like she thought she was sleeping. People asked how Margaret did it, what she used. But the more disturbing question, the one no one wanted to ask, was why no one stopped her. Because Margaret tried to get help. Months before the murders, she walked barefoot in the snow to Pastor Whitcomb's door. She said the devil was speaking through the baby, that her husband had 2 faces, and one of them never slept. The pastor told her to pray harder, said it was just exhaustion, advised her to serve her family with joy, not fear. She left that night with frostbite and a tract on obedience. So when the murders happened, Cedar Creek didn't just bury 5 children. They buried a warning. They had seen it coming and done nothing. The town spun stories to explain it. Maybe it was possession, or poisoned by laudanum, witchcraft even, anything to avoid the truth. A woman drowned in silence, and her children went under with her. Later, the graves were moved. Quietly, discreetly, someone donated a family plot at the edge of the cemetery. That's where the 5 small stones now sit, almost touching. No last names. Just first names and the same date carved beneath each, May 17th, 1890. Some say if you visit at dusk, you can hear lullabies. Others say the air is too still there. Ike, something's waiting. But what's most chilling isn't the legend. It's how normal everything looks now. A trimmed lawn, a white fence, fresh flowers from someone who never knew them but felt the weight anyway. Because this isn't just a graveyard. It's a reckoning. And Margaret's story isn't finished. They never found Margaret's body. The creek was swollen that night, spring melt running fast and high. Searchers followed footprints to the bank, where the mud gave way and the water swallowed the earth. No splash, no witness. Just her shawl snagged on a branch, torn like she'd changed her mind, too late. Some said it was justice. Others mercy. A few whispered it wasn't her at all, that she'd walked away clean and quiet, like a ghost escaping its own skin. But in Cedar Creek, Margaret never really left. Her name isn't spoken out loud, but she lingers, in the lull between Sunday hymns, in the hush that follows children's laughter near the cemetery fence. The mothers there now, some of them great-granddaughters of those who buried the truth, keep their eyes sharper, listen harder, pray differently, because that's the real legacy, not the graves, not the headlines, not even the blood. It's the silence that let it all happen, the kind that pretends not to hear when someone begs in the dark, the kind that cloaks itself in the decency while stepping over pain. But silence doesn't erase anything. It just plants it deeper. And grief, like roots, finds a way to grow. The 5 little graves remain, quiet, orderly, stones polished by weather and time. No statues, no angels, just names. Lillian, James, Emma, Benjamin, Ruth, and the echo of a life never lived. Every May 17th, someone leaves 5 white stones at the edge of the plot. No one's ever seen who does it. No one's tried. Because some stories, they aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be heard, held, haunted by. Margaret wasn't a monster. She was a mirror. And the question her story leaves behind isn't How could she? It's, how did we let her? So listen, when the world goes quiet, when the weight grows heavy, when the voices inside twist into something sharp, don't turn away, don't dismiss it, don't pray it, polite, because silence may feel safer, but it buries more than the dead, and some ghosts don't rest, they wait